Algiers has been summoned to the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs following the communique issued by the French diplomatic representation regarding the accreditation of French diplomatic and consular agents in Algeria. And Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar Benjama, has affirmed that the Security Council must act immediately to put an end to the famine that is officially hitting the Gaza Strip. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First, in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has signed a presidential decree terminating the functions of Mr. Nadir Al-Arbawi as Prime Minister and decided to appoint in his place Mr. Sifi Gharieb as interim Prime Minister. And the chargé d'affaires of the French embassy here in Algiers has been summoned to the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by the Director General of Protocol following the communique issued by the French diplomatic representation regarding the accreditation of French diplomatic and consular agents in Algeria. Ms. Al-Sharfi has more details in this report.
According to a statement from the ministry, the French diplomat's attention was firmly drawn to the serious breach of established diplomatic customs that characterizes the communiqué. In this context, it was pointed out to him that the communiqué was unacceptable in both form and substance, as it contained a biased presentation of the facts and was addressed directly to the Algerian public in order to incriminate the Foreign Affairs Ministry for its alleged exclusive and entire responsibility for the non-accreditation of the French diplomatic and consular agents in Algeria. The communiqué added that, from a formal point of view, the embassy's action was unacceptable as it violated the spirit and letter of the 1961 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. The non-accreditation of the French diplomatic and consular agents in Algeria came after a similar French decision and after the Algerian side had exhausted all possibilities for settling the dispute to the satisfaction of both countries. Algeria's response was nothing less than the strict application of reciprocity. As a result of the situation, 3 Algerian consuls general and 6 consuls have not received the accreditations they requested more than 6 months ago. Similarly, 46 Algerian diplomatic and consular agents have been unable to take up their posts in France due to the silence of the French side regarding their request for accreditation. The statement stressed that the situation created deliberately by the French authorities deals a serious blow to Algerian nationals living in France. It was strongly emphasized to the French diplomat that he himself is aware that the visa issue is not solely linked to the question of accreditation and that it is known to all that his government has made of this issue a central means of pressure in the iron fist standoff it wants to impose on Algeria. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs notes that the French government continues to use visas as a mean of blackmail.
And the Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Hamid Attaf, has received the Minister of Foreign Affairs and African Affairs of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Mohammed Islam Baysat, at his ministry's headquarters. The 2 ministers discussed the developments in the Western Sahara issue at the diplomatic level in light of the report recently published by the United Nations Secretary General and now submitted to the General Assembly. The permanent representative of Algeria to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, has affirmed in New York that the Security Council must act immediately to put an end to the famine that is officially hitting the Gaza Strip, which is subjected to a savage and barbaric Zionist aggression and a suffocating blockade. Speaking during a meeting of the Security Council devoted to the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, Mr. Benjama said that the Security Council must act to impose a ceasefire, save lives, ensure humanitarian access, and end the famine, warning that failure to do so would be complicity and shameful inaction, and that stopping the genocide is an obligation instead. Let's listen to Mr. Benjama.
This council must act as a matter of duty, a moral duty, a legal duty, must act to impose a ceasefire and protect and save innocent lives, must act to ensure unhindered humanitarian access at scale, must act to feed the starving and break famine. To fail is to be complicit. To delay is to accept shame. Yes, shame. To stop a genocide is not an option. It is an obligation.
The Algerian ambassador to the UN warned that Gaza faces a man-made famine now confirmed by the IPC, which will worsen by September if the Security Council and international community fail to act.
As the Secretary General reminded us, just when it seems there are no words left to describe the living hell in Gaza, a new one has been added: famine, man-made famine. We have been warning of it. Now famine is confirmed by the IPC. Famine is no more a fear, it is a reality, and it will expand by September if nothing is done by the international community, by this very Security Council. Famine cannot be hidden anymore behind manipulated figures and misleading claims of aid.
Mr. Benjama said famine cannot be solved by limited access to airdrops, stressing it has faces and names, robs dignity and family bonds, and pushes humanity to its limits.
Famine cannot be addressed through restricted access or token and impactless airdrops. Airdrops conducted only to soothe the conscience. Famine is the shame that will haunt all of us, all who could act and choose silence. But famine is not only a word in a report. It has faces, it has names, it has stolen dreams. Famine affects human beings and their dignity. Famine consumes the innocence of childhood. Famine burdens the strength of fatherhood. Famine extinguishes the essence of motherhood. Famine drives humanity to its very limits.
He said Israeli authorities ban international journalists from Gaza and deliberately target Palestinian reporters, and after the council's inaction, more were assassinated this week at Nasser Hospital, with the objective being preventing the truth from breaking out into the open.
This is the reality. This is the grim reality that the Israeli authorities want to conceal. This is why international journalists are banned from Gaza. This is why Palestinian journalists are deliberately targeted and assassinated. 245 of them have lost their lives. Late August, the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, deliberately killed 6 journalists. They carried nothing but the word, but the image, and they raised nothing but their voices. This very Security Council did nothing after this crime, and so the Israeli occupying power repeated the same pattern. At Nasser Hospital, 5 more journalists were killed, were assassinated.
Finally, Mr. Benjama reaffirmed Algeria's call for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire, criticizing the Security Council's inaction and warning it must move beyond speeches to fulfill its moral and legal responsibility to save innocent lives. In the same context, 14 out of the 15 members sitting on the United Nations Security Council have expressed their deep concern over the use of famine as a weapon of war by the Zionist occupation in Gaza, calling for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire. Musa Chafi reports again.
In an official statement, 14 members of the Security Council, except the United States, namely Guyana, Slovenia, Algeria, China, Denmark, France, Greece, Pakistan, Panama, the Republic of Korea, Russia, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and the United Kingdom, expressed concern about the famine situation now official in the Gaza Strip. At least 1.5 million people are facing food insecurity in Gaza, and at least 132,000 risk suffering from acute malnutrition by June 2026. The statement indicates, noting that 41,000 children risk dying of hunger by the same deadline. The 14 members of the Security Council affirmed that the use of famine as a weapon of war is clearly prohibited under international humanitarian law, and the famine in Gaza must be stopped immediately. They also urged the Zionist occupation to facilitate the access of humanitarian aid and to renounce its plans to occupy the city of Gaza.
And as the United Nations Security Council today held a meeting on the situation in Gaza, the UN Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alakrabov, urged all sides to put an end, or to immediately put an end to this brutal war. Let's listen to Ramiz Alakrabov.
With the deadline looming to meet the new requirements, many international non-government organizations operating in Gaza may be forced to cease their activities, leaving vulnerable communities without essential support. I urge the government to rescind the new registration requirement. All parties must allow rapid, safe, unimpeded and large-scale delivery of humanitarian aid. Civilians, including humanitarian workers and those seeking aid, must be protected. Mr. President, for the sake of humanity, I urge all sides to put an end to this brutal war immediately. The only way to stop the immense and undescribable human suffering is through a full, immediate, and permanent ceasefire and the unconditional release of all hostages.
Ramiz Alabrakov stressed the two-state solution remains the only viable path towards a just and lasting solution or resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
This alarming picture compels us to act with determination to reverse the present trajectory, starting with the ceasefire and the release of all hostages. What is needed now is a bold action to resolve the conflict, end the occupation, and re-establish a political horizon. In this regard, I welcome the convening of the high-level conference on the implementation of two-state solution, co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The message from the international community is clear. The two-state solution remains the only viable path towards just and lasting resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We must work collectively now to advance practical steps, including through our engagement at the upcoming UN General Assembly High-Level Week in September. With Gaza immersed in a situation so horrendous that it defies basic humanity, and with the West Bank facing genuine threats to its long-term existence, we can no longer wait.
And over 200 former EU and member state ambassadors and senior officials have called on EU institutions to take concrete actions to put pressure on the Israeli occupying forces to put an end to the genocide in the Gaza Strip. An open letter co-signed by 209 former EU and member state ambassadors and senior officials expressed dismay at the failure to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza 4 weeks following a previous letter sent on July 28 outlining 9 proposed EU actions in response to the Israeli government's unlawful actions in Gaza and the West Bank. And the Arab Interparliamentary Union has formally condemned the continuous Zionist raids on the Gaza Strip, which targeted the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, killing more than 20 people, including journalists and members of the medical humanitarian staff. And the International Committee for the Red Cross, ICRC, has denounced the double Zionist strike against the Nasser Medical Complex in the Gaza Strip, describing attacks against medical infrastructure as unacceptable. The ICRC condemned the strike on Nasser Hospital as unacceptable, stressing it is one of the last major hospitals in southern Gaza providing critical care. And the Assistant Secretary General of the Arab League in charge of media and communication, Ahmed Rashid Khattab, has called for an independent and transparent international investigation into the bombing by the Zionist occupation forces of the Nasser Medical Complex in the Gaza Strip. Mr. Khattab urged for an independent international investigation into crimes against Palestinian media, calling on journalist organizations to protect and support reporters and facilitate foreign press access to Gaza. He noted the Arab League's strong condemnation and demand to end global silence, stressing that 247 journalists have been killed, more than in any major recent war. And inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, have begun their work at the Bushehr site, Iran's main nuclear power plant, according to the IAEA chief Rafael Grossi. Grossi told journalists in Washington that the inspectors were there at the moment inspecting Bushehr, noting that this was the first IAEA team to return to Iran since Tehran suspended its cooperation with the UN body in early July following the Zionist aggression, and he added that discussions were underway to inspect into the Fordo and Natanz sites. And with this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for weekly programs, starting with my colleague Asya Bakar. It will be followed by another program by my colleague Hannah Dalil. As far as I am concerned, I will meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned and goodbye for now.
Our Talk, a weekly program with guests